Hello and welcome to Filmy Ladies. We are exploring the rainbow some more today with the color red. Hitu has got her book from the library about the theory of colors and the history of colors. But before she opens that, I just want to say I feel like I'm ready to be surprised about what the book says about red, but also I feel like I know,
Yeah.
Red is one of the easy ones. It's passion, it's blood, it's appetite, it's anger, it is extremity, it is a
Power,
form of life. Yeah, power. Um, and
lust.
red is lust for sure. Red is one of my favorite colors for sure. How about you?
Same. I love it. I know I look like a David Dhawan movie right now because my background is pink and my dress is red, but like, whatever. I don't care.
Does that mean everything that you wear looks like a David Dalton movie? Because you always have your pink background.
It is. I feel like in a different life, I was Govinda. I do.
Then we have got to do an episode on him soon.
We have to. I will try not to do hip thrusts during the recording.
Tell us,
Just before, for your eyes
right,
only.
right. Tell us what you've learned about red.
So usually when I refer to this book, which is The Secret Lives of Color, it's by Cassia St. Clair. So really good reference book. I feel like I usually learn a lot about the
Mhm.
different colors because she goes into like history and theory and stuff. Red was probably the only one where I was like, oh yeah, okay.
Okay.
Um, because I don't think she necessarily said anything that we haven't heard of. Mostly she just talks about how it's associated with power, with royalty. It is the color of like fire, is the color of blood. It is also associated with lust and therefore sordid things like we have like red light districts and things
Oh
like
yeah.
that. It's associated with anger and aggression. The only interesting thing I read about it was that, okay, two things. So, in a survey that was done, it was seen that if women who work in customer service wear red, then they consistently got bigger tips from men. However, they did not get more tips from other women. I also learned that when Olympic like athletes or whatever, if they're wearing red, they have a 55% higher chance of winning or like placing at medals and stuff. And I was like, what? I feel like I need to inform everyone in my life who is like sporty about these things. Like my mom does swimming competitions. I'm going to be
Yeah.
like, woman, you need to only wear red swimsuits from now on, red cap, everything needs to be all red. So I was kind of shocked at that number, but
But does that give an unfair advantage to every nation that has red in its flag, which is a lot
yes.
of us, obviously, and also red is one of the Olympic rings colors. So you could easily, in India's case, you could add in red without it
Oh
being
yeah.
a stance. But like Canada, Japan, France, Italy, the US, like, are we all China?
Yeah. So I was like, wow, that's interesting. But like at least like on a local level, if you're like, pickleball champion in your neighborhood or something, wear red, you guys. Um, so that was an interesting thing that I learned. And then, about the different shades. One thing that this book does not go into is like cultural associations
Oh,
with red. And that's where I find the book a little bit lacking because it tends to have a very like Eurocentric view.
sure.
Because in India, red is also the color of matrimony.
Mhm.
You can't miss it. It's the color of like sindoor and bindis, and married women wear red, married women wear red lipstick. Like you cannot disassociate red with marriage, which is why originally I wanted to do Parinita for this episode because I just think of Parinita as like a red movie, the 2005 one, but we'd already done it, so it's fine. So yeah, if there is one actress in Bollywood I associate with the color red, is probably Smita Patel,
Oh,
because
sure.
like movies like Mirchi Masala and everything, just like the fire and the spice and like the mirchi she has in her. I associate that with her. And red is also one of those very like signature Indian colors. It's also
Mhm.
very signature Chinese color. And I feel like both India and China associate red with like royalty, power, drama. It's not really a color associated with like, peasants. I mean, both countries have sort of like these caste systems or class systems, or where people of privilege typically wear the red color. So yeah, I was really excited to do this episode, and I picked Chandni Bar because I wanted to, it had been a while since I'd seen it. I've only
Mm,
ever seen it once, and I love tabu, and there's no such thing as too much tabu in my world. I had also heard Madhur Bhandarkar talk about Chandni Bar at the NAFA Film Festival, and some very interesting stories he told about how the movie got made.
mm,
And so I wanted to revisit it. And also because the color red features so strongly in that movie, in the poster, in the red outfit that she wears.
mm,
And it's also associated with like, red light districts and like sordid dance bars and things like that. So that's why I picked Chandni Bar from 2001.
mm,
So yeah, the sort of the sordid side of red, not the powerful, evocative side of red.
mhm.
Yeah. What are your feelings about the color?
I love red. It's such a color of life to me somehow because you can't, there's very little life without blood. So at
Yeah.
least for humans and lots of, not all other animals, obviously mammals, significantly, but like there's barely ever birth without blood, for example. So,
Mm,
um, and I'm very drawn to the warm colors and doesn't get more warm than red and orange really. So, we're at the like the peak of my favorite colors in our
yeah.
series.
It's all downhill from here for you, Beth.
Well, blue was a little bit of a struggle bus for me. I was like, man, I don't really care about blue, but I like
Purple was such a struggle bus for
what
me.
was a challenge for choosing something, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but red is, and the movie I chose, which is Kahaani from 2012,
You
leapt to mind immediately for me when we were talking about this. This may have actually been the first film I thought of when we were thinking about the color series. This is a very red movie to me, but in my rewatch, I was like, it's actually mostly only red at the end, but that's important. So, I mean, there's red throughout, and of course, I was looking for it, but the scene behind me, if you're watching on YouTube, is one of the moments from the end of Kahani during Durga Puja in Calcutta. So,
Mhm.
lots of red. But yeah, I too, with not anywhere near the knowledge you have, but I too associate it with India with beautiful flowers that I've seen, but also just the reds that are in so many textiles in
Mhm.
particular, but like some walls are red, some, the red that's in the earth tones of pottery and other handmade objects. But yeah, mostly textiles, I have to say. And then
Yeah.
obviously the things that are close to red, but not quite like the maroons or the dark pinks or the dark oranges or whatever, all these things that rely on a red as well. And yes, the heat of the sun and all that stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very Indian color to me as well.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us about Kahani. Do you want to
Well,
tell people like a quick synopsis? I'm pretty sure people have seen
yeah.
Kahani,
So
but just in case.
this conversation will be spoilery. So if you have not seen Kahani, I would recommend that you tap out and then maybe we come back in when Pitu is talking, which if you swipe through the video, you'll be able to see when she's talking more. But Kahani is the story of a woman from London, played by Vidya Balan, who comes to Calcutta 2 years after a terrorist attack on the Calcutta subway, and she's looking for her husband. And we find out little bits and things about him over the course of the film, like he was working for the National Data Center. I don't know what the National Data Center actually does. I have to be honest with you. I kept meaning to look it up and I kept forgetting, but you know, sensitive information of some kind. Um, and she is quickly befriended by a police officer at I forget which police station it is, but is it the Kalighat station or a different station anyway, played by Parambrata Chatterjee in what I think was his first Hindi film role.
Mm.
Um, Interestingly, he's in Vidya Balan's first movie ever, the Bengali film that she did. I hadn't remembered that. And he plays this very kindly, gentle police officer who helps her at every step of the way. She is heavily pregnant in the film, and that creates a lot of sympathy for her from people who might not otherwise be. Nawazuddin Siddiqui comes in as a federal level um, law enforcement agent who's also trying to figure out some of what is going on with things related to this case. That is all I will say that isn't spoilery.
Mm.
um, this is a movie that it's in my top 10 favorite Hindi films. I've watched it many, many times. I saw it 3 times in the cinema. I kept
Wow.
going. And the first time I saw it in the cinema was actually in India. And so, of course, there were no subtitles. So the thing that comes as a twist at the end of the movie was actually not a twist to me because I assumed it all along. I think because I was not, I was just able to make do with the English they put on the screen. And I was like, well, Okay, so spoilers are starting now. She is not actually pregnant. She's wearing a fake, belly. And because the movie shows us the terrorist attack, and then it says 2 years later, and then we see this very heavily pregnant woman, and I can tell that she's looking for her husband, right? I can pick up that much Hindi. I'm like, well, she's either pregnant by somebody else, or that's not anything because that was 2 years ago, and that's not
Right.
how long a person is pregnant.
Right.
So I assumed she was lying the whole time. Uh,
Right.
but it was still very satisfying to see at the end, when she uses her fake belly as a weapon and shoots down the villain, and we get all this imagery of her with Durga, with handy voiceover by patriarch extreme Amitabh Bachchan talking about Ma Durga coming to stamp out evil and return peace to us once a year and things like that. Um, I was looking back at some reviews of this film, and there were quite a few that are talking about how kind of cheesy the twist is and how the threads of this movie, the pieces of the puzzle don't really hold together very well. I disagree. I think this movie holds, I think the pieces work
Mm.
fairly well if you buy that a basically nobody can come in and get the police to start working with her on a thing, and it escalates to the level that it does. And yes, some things are very easy for them to solve. Um, so maybe I'm talking myself out of my opinion as I say it. Okay, maybe some of it's cheesy or too simple or whatever, but I think it's very effective. And every time I watch this, there's one more little piece that I have kind of forgotten about or whatever. So um, I think as a mystery, this holds up perfectly fine. Um, I find it an incredibly satisfying film. Please tell us what you think, and I have to run to the other room and get my computer charger, but I'll be able to hear you, so please just keep talking.
I mean, I've seen Kahaani. I think I saw it in the movie theater as well, in Chicago, and I remember really enjoying it. And I remember just loving Vidya Balan because she's just phenomenal in everything that she does. And I remember it being very evocative, but it's the only time I've seen it. So I don't actually remember a lot of the details. I remember some scenes that were really good. I remember really liking Paramrata Chatterjee. I enjoyed the scenes towards the end where it's like the Durga Puja is happening and, it's just this amazing festive atmosphere, but it's also an atmosphere of chaos.
Yeah.
So I remember all of that, and how easy it would be for someone in that chaos to just wiggle through and do the shenanigans that they want to
Mhm.
do.
Mhm.
But because it was so long ago that I saw it, because how old is this movie, Beth? I know it's older.
2012.
Yeah. So I don't quite remember necessarily thinking that, oh, that's so unrealistic
Mhm.
or whatever. Like, I feel like I was willing to suspend disbelief, and I don't remember having any like issues with the movie. Having said that, I also don't necessarily love the movie to the extent that I've seen it ever after that.
Mhm.
I did see it in the theater, and that was basically it.
Mhm.
So I don't quite remember the criticism that you're talking about, like the reviews and stuff, because I remember watching it with friends and everyone basically liked it.
Yeah, I don't remember
Um,
those either from the time.
yeah,
Some of these are, of course, linked in the wiki article about the film. So,
yeah. But that's also true. I feel like a lot of times when one is watching like a mystery or something like that,
yeah.
there's always going to be something in there just doesn't make a lot of sense, and there's always like protocol and things like that are just, there's always like some convenient thing that happens and some do-gooder that helps them, and it's kind of like what. But
Right.
there also wouldn't be a story without it, so I don't know if I would necessarily get too caught up in that.
Yeah.
I do remember the performances in this movie being really great. Vidya is amazing.
It's perfect.
Yeah, she's so good.
Like you can just watch her face for the whole movie and kind of ignore the rest of it and just be amazed, and like those huge eyes that she has, and how
Yeah,
director Sujoy Ghosh, who is, I think, never better than he is in this film, it's also his screenplay, um, lingers on her face in exactly the right
yeah.
ways. And you see, so there's a moment in this film that I had noticed before, but I was really looking at this time where so it becomes clear that the police officer who's been helping her has also been helping the federal agent, and she feels
Mm,
very betrayed by this because she hates this federal agent. Um, and played by Nawazuddin Siddiqui, this is one of his first major roles, and he's also excellent, excellent
yeah.
in this role. Um, and you can just watch the betrayal in her face. Never mind that she's been lying the whole
Oh
time,
yeah.
right? So you're like, girl, you have no leg to stand on, but you can just see. And of course, if you don't know the twist, the way she, the way you just feel so awful for her at every turn when anything sets her back, you just feel extra
Hmm.
bad for her because of the position she's in. And so watching that happen, and then when you see her in her hotel room looking out the window, and one of the pandals for Durga Puja goes by,
Mm.
and you see her looking at the goddess, and it goes back to her face, and she looks at the goddess, and it back to her face. And that's where you see this turn that, like, I think that's where she decides she's gonna shoot this guy dead.
Yeah.
When she gets the chance, she's gonna kill him.
Yeah.
Um, because before that point, she's been on an information seeking quest.
Hmm.
And we don't really know, even in retrospect, I'm not sure where I think she decided to have it be lethal. And that for me, that's the point where it is, which obviously ties easily to the symbolism of the Durga Pandals and everything. But I think
Right.
I like watching that moment.
Yeah.
Mm.
If I remember correctly, I remember watching this movie and thinking that there was definitely a lot of sexual tension and spark between her and Paribrata. And I
Yeah.
remember there were points where I was like, "Ooh, I
Yeah.
don't think they should get
Yeah.
together," but I also
Yeah.
kind of want them to get
I
together.
know, I do too.
Right?
Like, so there's a scene where she's helping him with the computer because the police station computer is always acting up. So she helps them. She does that right away, which is obviously smart because then they want to help her. But there's scenes throughout, and like she's leaning over him or vice versa, and you can see him kind of like looking at her, and like
Yeah.
you can kind of feel the heat, at least that he is
Yeah.
feeling. And then in the end, he has figured out what's happened, and he figures it out before the federal agent does. And you just see he's like, "Yep, she got us."
Yeah.
Like, "Yep, she was a story. She was a Kahaani. This whole thing is
Right.
a Kahaani." Um,
Yeah.
and he's so unangry about it. He realizes they've been gotten the better of, and he's like, "Well, she got us," you know.
Right.
And it's such an his character is such a refreshing version of a man in a Hindi film.
Yeah.
Oh, there's, Inspector Rana is like perfect, no notes.
Yeah.
And a very refreshing police officer figure as well, of course.
Yeah.
Um,
Which
but
also makes me wonder how long he's going to last in that career, though. Like,
you do wonder. So his station seems to be pretty chill.
right.
Right, like it's kind of implied, I think, that there's maybe not a whole lot going on in that station, and the guy who plays his commanding officer is a stalwart of Bengali cinema, and he's very like avuncular, kind of fun guy. And
Mm,
towards the end, he helps Rana get out from under Khan and like go find Vijay Bakshi. Um, so it seems to be a pretty relaxed police station. So maybe if he stays,
right.
he will. But and if Khan gets over his anger at some point, because he asks this guy to work with him, so he's been working for the federal agent as a secret for quite some time. So maybe Khan will help advance his career at
Mm,
some point. I don't know. But yeah, he's not a ruthless,
yeah.
and he's very willing to bend the law to help her. Very.
Right.
So they break into an old records facility. Is it likely that all those records are sitting there from the National Data Center, just sitting in a building unattended? I don't know. I've seen some pretty shocking archives in India in my day, but like that, again, what does the in the I don't know. But then they break into the current National Data Center as well. So and an apartment like they
Right.
so he's definitely not up by the books.
No, he's definitely not a copper that's insisting on like warrants and stuff. Because I was gonna say, well, if he's that goody goody, he's that much of a green flag. Is this like Shashi Kapoor redux? And I was like, no, Shashi Kapoor would not be breaking into those warehouses.
That's an interesting question. Yeah, if this was a 70s film with Shashi as a cop, yes,
No.
wouldn't quite play out.
Shashi would be on that moral high ground and he would be judging you and staring you down.
I would love to see him playing Khan though and being like furious about the double cross and everything. He could do that really well.
What do you think of Nawaz in this movie? I
Oh,
mean, Nawaz is always great,
I
but
think he's you know what? Here's a word that we seem to only use about women, but I'm going to use about a man. He's a firecracker in this film. He's this little guy, and he is so angry and so like no nonsense, smoking all the time, fast talking on the phone. He's from Delhi. He's like these bumpkins in Calcutta know nothing. Like get out of my way. Um, I think it's just a fiery performance that I really love, and I love that he. I mean, I had seen him in things before this, but I hadn't registered him before this.
Right.
And he's just bam. And to hold your own in scenes with Vidya Balan in this film, I think is really something. Now they don't have a ton of scenes together, but and he's not in it actually. He's, definitely a supporting character. But I think he's absolutely an amazing presence. And you know, all the things I've seen him in subsequently are not like this. They're all different. And he, despite going hard on this one character, he makes so many other characters in the career
Yeah.
he's had so far, which is what an actor does. Like, I don't
Right.
sound surprised, but I think he has not been typecast
Yeah, he's very versatile.
he's very, very versatile, and people seem to like that about him and give him lots of things to do. Now, I have not seen all of his films, so I can't give you the definitive opinion on Nawaz, but I do think he's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. At first, when you said this is a word we only use bubbly, I was like, is she going to say bubbly? Because I don't think of Nawaz as bubbly. And then I
No,
was like, okay, firecracker. That makes more
right, we
sense.
don't call men firecrackers, I don't think, but
No.
I mean, is
Or
he
Spitfires for that matter either.
right?
No.
But he does come in like like firing like a gun at everybody, right? Like he's
Yeah.
he's no nonsense, get out of my way, steamroller
Yeah.
type, attack, 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 attack. The way he's speaking seems to be very attack-y.
He's very staccato
Yes.
in his speech, right? Like
Yes.
I actually love the way Nawazuddin Siddiqui like intonates and the way he speaks. Like I love the way he uses the Hindi language or when he's speaking Urdu.
Mhm.
He's a joy to listen to. Like just his
Mhm.
voice alone. I don't think he gets credit for that because his voice is not what is stereotypically considered attractive. Like he doesn't have
Sure.
a baritone
No, he
like
doesn't.
Bachchan does. It's not necessarily an attractive voice audio wise, but there's something about his dialogue delivery that's just you just want to listen to him. When you were saying the thing about Nawaz, it reminded me of two things. So my husband was like on some like YouTube rabbit hole watching like old interviews and whatnot. And he randomly decided he wanted to rewatch Bandit Queen. Why a person randomly decides to rewatch Bandit Queen is not. I do not know. I was at work. So he decided he wanted to rewatch Bandit Queen. And then I came home from work and he was so excited and happy. And he was like, oh my God, I rewatched Bandit Queen, such a great movie. And then he was like, Nawaz was in it. I'd forgotten Nawaz was in it. I was like, Nawaz was in
I
Bandit
didn't
Queen?
remember that either.
I didn't remember it either, but there are so many of those movies that you'll watch, and Nawaz is like in a bit role. Like, you've seen Dev D, I know, but like
Right.
in Dev D, in Emotional Atyachar, that song, he's in the back just playing the trumpet. That's all he does. He just plays the trumpet, and it's like, oh my god, that's Nawaz. Have you seen? I know you've seen Race, but also have you seen Raat Akeli Hai?
Yes.
He's so good in both of those
So good
movies
enough. Yeah.
too. And in Race, that sort of that cat and mouse game that he's playing with Shahrukh, and then the scenes where they're together and they're just trying to like a Mexican standoff kind of that they're doing, and then Reis gives him the mithai and he doesn't want the mithai, and like I remember watching that and just being like so stressed out in the theater. I was so anxious. I was like, oh my god, because his character in Reis has this feeling of just being wound up really tight and you don't know when he's going to blast off at Reis. And he was also excellent in Rata Keli Hai. I did not know I mean, I shouldn't say I didn't know he had it in him, but like he does have it in him. He has all the things. So yeah, amazing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just think everyone in this movie is absolutely perfect. And Vidya, this is her career best in my opinion.
Yeah,
And I'm sure
I
there's
think so
more
too.
great stuff to come for her, especially if she can somehow get her hands on some slightly better scripts than a few of the things we've seen her do recently. But to me, this
Yeah.
is the perfect deployment of her skills and a script that's worthy of them and a director that is using her,
Hmm.
perfectly, perfectly, perfectly. Um,
I think one of her greatest strengths, I mean, she's a phenomenal actor, but I think one of her greatest strengths is how naive and innocent she looks.
mhm,
And it's so gratifying when she does a role and you're like, oh,
mhm,
maybe you're not the pushover I thought you were,
right.
right? Like I would love to have someone do, because like in Parinita, she's really good in that movie, but I love those little streaks of manipulation that come out in her. And then I love her in Dirty Picture. Like, I
Yeah.
think Dirty Picture is probably my favorite Vidya Balan performance of all time because she's so amazing in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
um like those points in the movie where she's like saucy and she knows who she is and she's laughing at people, and it's like, girl, I love that you're laughing at these men, but I'm also really terrified for you at the same time, please don't. She's so good in that. But yeah, I think in recent times she's just not getting good scripts, and I think it's the curse of, being over 40, where people are just like, well, you get to be on that little shelf now.
Yeah.
It really sucks. But yeah. um Okay, so my movie is Chandni Bar.
Yeah.
Have you seen Chandni Bar?
I've never seen it, so I'm eager to hear.
It is dire, but it's amazing. And I watched Chandni Bar when it came out, not in the theaters because I think I was doing my master's at that time, so I didn't see it in the theaters. But I saw it soon after it had come out, and I remember being like amazed by it. And I mostly saw it because I love Tabu. And recently, when I was at the NAFA Film Festival, and we did like the tete-a-tete with Madhur Bhandarkar, he told us such an amazing story about how it got made. So he talked about how he was terrible at studies. He was not good at academics. He only liked movies. And he was that kid that didn't study, didn't do his homework, didn't like to go to school. All he did was like take money and go to the cinema halls and watch movies or watch movies at home. And he said, I watched everything, right? Like he watched Bollywood Sala, but he also watched Satyajit Ray. He also watched American movies. He watched everything he could get his hands on. And he go to school after that. And he got a job as a video cassette loaning person. So apparently this was a thing in India. I do not know because I did not live in India at that time. But apparently you could call a video library and you could be like, hey, I want this cassette delivered to my house, like if you were a patron. And they would send someone to your house with that cassette. So like you didn't have to go there necessarily. That was his job, because there wasn't exactly anything else he was qualified to do. And it suited him just fine because he got to see all the movies for free.
Yeah.
And he said, as he did that, he got to meet people from basically every strata of society, from middle class people to rich people to super rich people. Like he had entry to all these homes and like an insight into how they lived. And he wanted to go to FTII. And the first thing they said was, we can't admit you. You don't even have a bachelor's degree. You're not even 10th standard pass, right? Like high school. So I mean, your sixth fail, we can't admit you. And he was like, fine, whatever. He kept struggling. He tried making contacts, and then he actually became a assistant director to Ram Gopal Verma,
Ah,
and he was the AD on Rangila apparently. And that was like an amazing experience for him. So he kept working with Ramu, and Ramu encouraged him, like, you need to be a director too. Like, I think you're going to do so great. But he was finding it really hard to find financing and to get someone. So he wrote a story, and every producer he went to kept telling him, this is terrible, change this, put this. And he said at that time, there was a trend of three heroes in a movie,
ah,
like Tridev and all of that, Trimurti, stuff like that. So he said, you should make a movie with three heroes, and there should be masala, and there should be this and that and all. So he made this movie because he had no other option. And the movie was called Trishakti. And he asked everyone in the audience, he's like, has anyone in this hall watched this movie? No hands went up. He said, has anyone in this hall even heard of this movie? No hands went up. And he said, there you go.
I
So the
haven't.
movie bombed.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, no one was answering his calls anymore. No
Mm,
one was taking his calls. He had no money. He had stopped being an assistant director to Ramu. So he basically was really depressed and unhappy, and he was just trying to make contacts and connections, but nothing was working out. He was running very low on cash, and he had a really dear friend who, in an attempt to get him out of his funk, said, why don't you come and spend some time with me? That friend was a stockbroker
mm,
at at the Bombay Stock Exchange. So he was like a day trader or something. So he said, why don't you come and hang out with me? And Madhur Bhandarkar said, I will if you pay me like cab fare, because I can't even afford cab fare right now to go from
mm,
Khar to Mahim. So he was like, fine. And so he got there, and the friend had basically taken him to a bar, like a beer bar that had like bar dancers over there. And Madhur Bhandarkar had never been to one of those places in his life. Like he had occasionally had a beer and stuff, but he'd never actually been there, to a place like that. And he said, I was completely shocked. It was dingy. It was dark. There was smoke everywhere because people were smoking. everybody was some like level of drunk, and there were all these women with long loose hair wearing bright gaudy outfits, and it was the song that was playing was Mungra, the Helen song.
Mhm.
And that song was playing, and he was just like, I was so embarrassed, I put my head down because I was terrified that someone who knew me was going to see me, and they were going to go home to my dad and say, oh, your son is a flop filmmaker, so now he's just going to dance bars and drinking. Really, I hope you're proud of him. And he was like, I didn't drink anything, I didn't let my friend drink anything. It was terrible because
Oh.
he, all I could think about was these poor girls, like, what is going on, right? Because it was so sordid. And he left. He said, I couldn't sleep all night because I kept playing that song in my head and I kept seeing that scene. And I kept thinking to myself, who are these girls? I know who the patrons are because my friend is one of them, but who are these girls? I have no idea who these women are. Do they want to do this? Is this something that appeals to them? Are they just doing it for money? What's happening? Right. So 2 days later, he calls his friend again and he says, listen, I need a favor from you. I need you to take me to that bar again or to like a different bar and like pay my cab fare also. And the friend was like, absolutely not. You are the biggest buzzkill on the planet. You didn't drink. You didn't let me drink. You kept hiding your face in your hands and you were just terrible. I would never invite you out. I would rather go out with my other friends. And Mother Pandakar is like, no, I beg you, please take me. I apologize. I will be on my best behavior. So his friend was like, oh, fine. So his friend took him to the bar. And instead of drinking, Mother Mandarkar started like observing the women and having like little conversations with them when he could, asking him questions. He couldn't really get too far with that because they were working. And then he said to his friend, take me to another bar and another bar and another bar. All night, they just basically went bar hopping. And he kept meeting these women. And then he came home and he started writing. And he said, I'm old school. I don't I didn't like to use computers and stuff, so I just got like a notepad out and I just started writing and writing, and I wrote this story about a girl who comes, and because of poverty she decides to become a bar dancer. And then he started going to those bars during the daytime to meet these women, ask them about their lives and everything. And he started writing that down. And around that time, he spoke to a movie producer and a movie director. And they basically said to him, what do you have to lose? You're probably not going to get any financing for this film because this film sounds depressing, but you're already a flop film director. So you have nothing to lose. Write the story you want to write. If someone's willing to finance it, so be it. If not, at least you wrote a story that mattered to you. So he said, fine. So he wrote it. And the only person he could think of to play the role of Mumtaz was Tabu. And he
Mm.
was like, if Tabu had said no to me, it would have been game over. So
Mm.
then he found a producer and he said to the producer, I need to talk to Tabu. It took them 45 days to be able to meet Tabu. And when they were in the car going to meet Tabu to narrate the script to her, the producer said to him, listen, I have not told Tabu about your movie Trishakti. I'm going to introduce you as Ram Gopal Verma's assistant director, and we're going to talk about Rangila because then she'll come on board. We're not going to talk about Trishakti. And he was like, good idea. All right. So
Like,
they met.
lucky this is before as much IMD, I mean, IMDb existed then, but
Yeah, because this movie's from 2001. And so they met Tabu, and Tabu was like, I'm on board. I'll do this movie.
Mm.
And so that's how the movie got made. And he said, I made that movie because I had nothing to lose. I really wanted to tell the story of these women. And I'm happy that the movie received the accolades it did. That movie then won the national award. It also won the national award for Ananya Khare, who plays one of the bar dancers, who's Tabu's friend. Tabu did not win. I don't know who won in 2001 for the best actress or whatever, but Tabu was nominated, I believe. And he said it was really funny that a few years later, when FTII was having like a graduation ceremony, they invited me to be like their chief guest. And he was like, it just felt like life had kind of come full circle. Like they wouldn't admit me because, you know.
I'm,
Um,
I'm looking up. So the name of the award that it won is the National Film Award for Best Film on Other Social Issues.
oh,
Not like the National Film Award. However, I
okay.
was looking at some of the other things that have won that award. I've certainly not heard of all of them, but one
Hmm.
of them is Koi Mil Gaya.
I mean, I low key love that movie, but
Course. Of course, like Iqbal won it. That makes sense. Well done,
yeah.
Abba won it.
Okay.
They're Pink.
Okay.
Padman. Oh boy.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, so it's like the like do-gooder award.
Right.
But it's still a national award,
Right.
yeah.
And so he said that after that, his career like basically took off because of that movie. And so he said, I basically went from Tri Shakti, which flopped, and then I went to do Stree Shakti, like women's, power, and that like helped me.
That's funny.
So for those who don't know, Chandni Bar is basically about a young woman in a small village in Uttar Pradesh that her parents die in like riots, and she has no one left except for her mama, her maternal uncle. And so they take the last train out and they come to Mumbai, and they have no way of making a livelihood. Rajpal Yadav is the one who helps them find a little slum to live in. And he's amazing in this movie. He plays Iqbal Mia, and he's the one who basically suggests to the uncle, like, I know you don't have any money and I don't know what job you're going to do, but I know this bar. And if your niece wants to work there, she can. And Tabu's transformation from like this very shy, very quiet, very innocent, very traumatized girl who has lost her parents, to this person who starts dancing at this bar is just so well done. I mean, she's Tabu. She's phenomenal. The movie is almost shot like a documentary, like, like with the handy-cam sort of thing. And so much of this movie is basically shot at night.
Yeah.
Most of, I would say 90% of the film is shot at night, and it's indoors, and it was basically shot at real bars. So when you watch the credits at the beginning, they've literally listed the bars that were shot at.
Oh
There was
wow.
only,
That's cool.
yeah, there was just and it was shot in a lot of like slums and tenements and stuff. There was only like one film set that was constructed at like Ramoji Film City or something like that, but otherwise everything is like real in a way. And so Tabu's life and her camaraderie with the other girls who are bar dancers and their lives and the stories that all of them have is really interesting. The guy who owns the dance bar, Anna, he's really interesting. And then Tabu falls in love with a goon who's played by Atul Kulkarni. He's amazing. They get married, and I was like, don't do it, girl, don't do it. But they get married, and then things happen, and then you think life has turned for her because now she's married and she's like, I would never dance again. But then Atul Kulkarni's character dies. And so then she's back to square one, right? One thing that I really love about this movie is the way that their world and their life is kind of normalized, where they're not put up on a pedestal as like these great, like, people, but they're also not slut shamed or treated as like these terrible. They're just human beings, they're individuals, they're people that bad things have happened to them. There's a scene where her friend says to her, no one is doing this because they want to. We're not dancing for men because we want to. We're doing it because we have no other way of living and we'd like to live.
Yeah.
So I like how matter of fact they are. It's also so interesting. There's scenes there where they're dancing and they have like a double shift. So there's a shift where some girls are dancing on the stage and there's these men leering at them and they're drinking, they're gross and icky, and the women are dancing. And then that group of women goes into the office, and then the next group of women, right, like their shift changes, and when they go into the office they're so like matter of fact about it. Like 2 seconds ago they had these lascivious expressions on their face and they were singing to these like cabaret numbers, and then they're talking about, they're like, so did you pay your kids school fees? I've asked that guy, I want him to get my kid admitted to like an English medium school, hopefully
Yeah.
he'll come through for me. They're just talking about their daily life, right?
Yeah.
And when the women talk to each other, they're not just talking about the men, they're talking about their own lives and what
Right.
they want and how they don't want their children to grow up in this way.
Yeah.
The other thing I love is like the women are so humanized. You feel so much for them, you care about them, and they're not stereotypical. So there's people like Mumtaz, which is Tabu's character, which is she's a very soft person.
Hmm.
She's soft, she's sensitive, she's empathetic, and she's doing this because she has to, but she has that softness to her. But then there's others who are much harsher and they're loudmouths. They're still friends, they're still supportive to her, they'll still help her when she goes into the hospital, when she goes into labor, right? They'll still come see her baby. But they're also harsh and they're potty mouths and they cuss where she doesn't because she's just more, ladylike in a way. But they're all they're all women that support each other. It's very interesting. Like in this film, every time something bad happens to one of the women, it's the women who rally around. It's the women who help her. Like when she bursts into tears because her husband is being killed, which you knew because he's a goon is going to happen sooner or later. It's the women who help her. They're the ones who say, and also Iqbal, who's played by Rishpal Yadav. Um, so I really like that. I feel like when movies are made on sex workers or they're made on bar dancers or something, there's a tendency to just paint them all with a broad brush. Like, here's this category of women, and all these women are alike. And I like that in this movie, each of those women has a completely different personality and a different history and also different destinies, right? Like, bad things happen to some of them. Um, and some of them go on to have a really good life. Like there's a scene where Tabu and her kids are grocery shopping. So they're buying like subsies and stuff. And there's a woman who comes by who we see in one of the earlier shots of the film, Farida.
Mm.
And Farida's like, Mumu, because they all call Mumtaz Mumu. And so they're like, she's like, Mumu, what are you doing here? And she's like, oh, I'm just buying vegetables. How are you? I haven't seen you in ages. And she's like, oh, yeah, I married this man. This is my husband. And they're like, oh, these are your kids. They're so much older now. And then she says to Mumu, you have to come and visit me sometime. Bring your children with you.
Mm.
And it's like there are women who have lives outside of just that club, right? And I think that goes so far in a society or in a world where women don't want to be sex workers, but it's forced upon them. The people who are victimizing them are men. The people who are consumers of the product are men. The people who are profiting off of them are men, but it's the women who are hated, right? It's the women that are disgraceful. And I like that this movie at least shows you who the horrible people are. And it's almost always it's the guys who are profiting off of them. The women are just trying to survive. And so I'm not going to say this movie is heartwarming. It is heartwarming in its moments. And I like how it humanizes these women. And hopefully, if someone watches a movie like this, they're going to realize that, newsflash, sex workers are human beings, and don't be on your high horse about them. You're just lucky that you're not in the situation they're in. They're not worse than you, and you're not better than them, right? So hopefully give some insight about that. Um, but it's also a realistic look at, this is what happens when you're in a certain circumstance and you don't have education and you don't have anything to fall back on, and the only people are also either predatory or they're people who don't actually know any other thing in life. So it's not an optimistic movie that ends on like a very happy note, but I also think if it was an optimistic, happy, feel good movie at the end, it would be like a slap in the face of the viewer, because it's like, come on, you know. But it's a really good film, and Tabu is just, she's magnificent, and I completely understand why Madhur Bhandarkar said it was her or nothing. If she's on board, this movie's getting made. If she's not, I don't want to make the movie even. And the movie actually starts with, how Indian movies always start with a disclaimer where they're like, smoking is da 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 whatever. Instead of that, this movie starts with a disclaimer. Usually I forward through those, but this one actually has, I really liked what it said, and I took a picture of it. Give me a sec. It said, this film is dedicated to the thousands of girls who earn their living dancing in bars. Through this film, we wanted to portray their struggle for survival. We have no intention to demean or insult their profession or their lifestyle. We respect these girls and appreciate their struggle for sustenance through this profession. I really like that as well. I think that the movie, instead of trying to, again, profit off of these people, I think it just tries to shed a light on who they are. And it's like, if you're gonna find anything disgraceful, instead of finding these women or what they do disgraceful, you should be asking yourself what the circumstances are in a society that leaves women with no other option. And there's a very good scene where there's like a police raid that happens on the bar. And because I think technically they were illegal or something, I don't really know. Or maybe they think that there's prostitution happening or something. And so there's a raid that happens, and all the people, the bar dancers, but also the patrons, they're all like gathered up and taken to the police station. And there's a very like low-key funny scene where it's not meant to be funny, but it ends up being funny, where the police inspector is like questioning each person. And there's such a wide swath of society. There's people who are well dressed all the way down to people who look like goons or thugs. And they're asking them, what's your name? And they're writing it in a ledger. And they're like, why were you there? And they were like, da, da. And there's two professors and they're just very like meek, and they're like dressed in like chinos and like button down shirts and like glasses, and they're very like, professorial. And they're like, what are your names? And they're like, da 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 da. And they're like, why were you here? And they were like, well, we're just visiting Mumbai, and so we decided to come and see what the dance bar was like. And then they were like, please don't publish our names anywhere because it'll destroy our reputation. And then the Havaldar was like, oh, and going to a dance bar is okay, like that's not destroying your reputation. So I love how it also pokes fun at people who are educated and who are privileged, and they know that it's not necessarily a good thing for them to do, but all they care about is their image. It's just a very good movie. The soundtrack is really good because it's basically just songs from like the 70s and 80s. I actually had a huge desire to watch Karma because there's songs from Karma, like Dil Bar Dil Se Pyare. And I was like, we know how much we love Arunai Rani. And I was like, I need more Arunai Rani in my life. So yeah, I recommend Chandni Bar. It does look at the color red through the form of not only the garish red Georgette, very cheap saris that she wears with the very loud kind of embroidery and the gold tinfoil sort of things on it, and the bright red lipstick that they wear, the garishness and the sordidness of it, and also the whole like dance bar culture and everything. But also the power dynamics between people, and also the fact that red is a color that has been used to empower women, but it's also a color that is used to reduce women down to like just, I mean, you're just, someone to be used. So yeah, I would recommend watching it, but you need to be like in a good mood to watch it
I'm
because it's dire.
interested. He's a director. I haven't seen that much of his work. I've seen
Mm,
Passion
mm.
and I've seen,
Passion is his weakest.
yeah, and I've seen Heroin, which I don't remember super well. Um,
I like page three.
yeah, I have I seen Page, maybe I've seen Page Three. He was certainly someone who was talked about a lot when I first started watching Hindi films, but I feel like he's kind of dropped off the,
Yeah,
we don't hear about him very much anymore. Now, I say that, and I've seen exactly one Indian film that released in 2025 so far. So, like, I do not have my fingers
right.
of what is going on.
I don't either. I haven't been watching anything that's like super recent. I'd rather just rewatch movies that I love, or like go down like, a retro lane kind of, but I'm not particularly interested in what's coming out either. Are there any other movies that you thought of for Red?
No, I was quite fixed on Kahani.
Okay.
Easily come up with some more, I think. Like, so obviously anything with a good wedding scene,
Yeah.
anything where a wedding scene is critical or lavish or anything like that would probably be a fair candidate for red, assuming the bride is wearing red.
Yeah.
I feel like there are certainly movies where there's red, like red brick a lot or something like that. If
Mm.
there's a lot of exteriors, I think you could come up with that. Now maybe that veers to brown or orange or whatever, but I,
Yeah.
and red does read Bengali film to me pretty strongly because of,
Mm.
what especially women might be wearing, but I yeah, I wanted to watch Kahani again, so I did.
Yeah, for me, Red, I actually thought of Parineeta, and that's why I was
Yeah.
like, okay. At first, I was like, I want to do Parineeta for Red, but then I was like, wait, I want to see the other Parineetas. And by other Parineetas, I basically just meant the Ashok Kumar, Meena Kumari one. And then I discovered that there was the Mashmi Chatterjee one. And then I discovered you told me that there was a Jitendra one. I was like, what in heaven's name is happening? And so then I was like, do we want to do four Parineetas? Because if you said no, then I would have been like, fine, the Parineeta is like my Red movie. But then you were talked into doing the four
No,
Parineetas.
I had a choice.
Yeah, but then when I knew that we were doing the Pranita episode, I was like, okay, then I'm going to do Chandni Bar for Red because I had been wanting to watch it since
Uh,
Madhur Bhandarkar spoke about it, and also Taboo. What is the problem with Taboo? None.
Red Rose did sort of pop into mind at some point, but obviously we've talked about that in other ways. But yeah, when we decided on our Rainbow series, I started a little Google Doc for myself where I'm listing what I think I'm going to watch. So um, I never added anything else for Red.
So far, how much have you veered from your original things that you wrote in your Google Doc?
Not very much.
Okay.
Not very much. Um, Pink, we'll get to next, I believe, is Pink.
Yeah.
So we'll spoiler, I'm not watching the movie Pink.
No.
I did do blue, but I won't do pink. Um, there must be a movie out there somewhere called Red in one of the Indian languages, right?
Yeah, well, yes and no. So there's Roja, which is the
Sure.
Mani Ratnam movie that has Arvind Swamy, and so I actually did for one brief second consider Roja as well. But the thing about Roja is that it doesn't actually have a very red palette, and
Right.
Roja in Tamil actually means rose.
Hmm.
But like for all its name of Roja, it doesn't. It's mostly just white because of Kashmir. So I decided against that, but. Except for Roja, I mean, there's like Lal Patthar,
Yeah.
what else? Lal. There has to be so many things that have Lal in there,
Yeah, there must be.
right?
Yeah.
What is that terrible song of Amitabh Bachchan's "Ye Lal Rang Kab Mujhe Chhodega"? When will the red color leave me? It's terrible. Oh, I will send you the YouTube link. It's awful. I don't like
Okay.
this song.
Yeah. And as you were saying in the beginning, any movie with a significant sindoor scene is obviously also a fair candidate for this. But
Yeah.
it
You
made
know
me
what's a
think.
very Oh, go ahead.
I was just thinking about, if we're taking red as hunger, lust, passion, anger, da 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 da. Da.
Mm,
Like, yes, we did a lot of those in our Seven Deadly Sins series, but there are more things
mm,
we could get to that you could easily pull. And obviously, Mirch Masala would have been in here had
yeah,
we not already done it. So
right.
there'd be a
You
lot
know
of.
what's very red? Lapata ladies.
Oh, yes.
I mean, they're literally just wearing that red outfit for so long. And the fact that they're brides and they're wearing red and their face is covered with the
Yeah.
ghungat is so significant to them. Oh, Fool, I love her so much. Um, Fool from whatever that sunflower gown she was going to go to. Okay, did you have any other things to say about red?
Um, Probably not, other than that, I did sort of idly think through, oh, if we were doing this about American movies, for example, what
Mm,
would I choose? I didn't really get anywhere with it, although I'm sure I could Google a list of movies where red is significant in Hollywood movies, and I would be like, oh, yes, obviously, 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 other than something like The Godfather or like, James
Handmaid's
Bond
Tale.
so often has that red that drips down over
Yeah.
so it would not be hard to do, I'm sure, but nothing comes to mind as easily for me.
But for TV shows, there's Handmaid's Tale. It's just red, red, red,
Oh,
red, red.
Padmavat would be a great red one because the end where they're all in those red saris walking
Oh,
to their death. I remember back in the day I put a picture of
yeah.
that up on Twitter with a scene from Handmaid's Tale next to it, and I was like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Terrible. Have you seen that movie? So good. It's not called The Covenant. It's the movie that they just made last year about the Pope.
Oh,
Conclave
Conclave. Yep.
with Stanley Tucci in it.
Oh, yes, with
That's
Cardinal. Yeah.
Yeah, with all the cardinal red,
Yeah.
and especially those scenes, like the cinematography is so beautiful, and when they take those like long shots and you see the cardinals and it's like the white background, it's just very evocative.
Yeah.
And then there's also I love Chocolat, the movie, and like there's so much red in that movie. I mean, obviously there's a lot of chocolate brown, but there's also so much red. Like the first time we see Juliette Binoche is when she's wearing that like Red Riding Hood-esque cape.
Yeah, you're making me also think of like there are a lot of cooking movies that probably have a lot of red, especially if they are Italian, obviously, right?
Right.
Oh, so like is it called The Big Night, that movie about the Italian restaurant that has the feast? Uh
I don't know.
yeah, The Big Night. Um and Moonstruck also makes me think of the color red.
Oh, I love Moonstruck. I love Nicolas Cage in that movie. He is so unhinged.
In such an appropriate way.
He's so Nicolas Cage. Like he doesn't get more Nicolas Cage than. And also Cher is so amazing.
Like,
And I love the grandpa in that movie who has like the five dogs, and he's always like wandering everywhere with his dogs. And I was like, you, sir, are my inspiration.
everything about
I
that movie is
I want to grow up and be that old man. Um, but yeah, now I want to go watch Moonstruck again.
it's so good.
Um, it's so good. Okay, I think that wraps up this episode on the color series. Our next color movie is going to be pink, which I'm very excited for because it is my favorite color in the whole world.
One of my favorite.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and you
Pink
guys
is
tell us.
everywhere, so we will have a
Pink is
lot of fun
everywhere.
options.
Pink is certainly everywhere in my house.
Just look around.
Just exist. So tell us, guys, what colors you associate with the color red, what that means to you. It can be Hollywood movies as well. Tell us if you've seen Kahani. Tell us if you've seen Chandni Bar. If you were doing this episode instead of us, or if you were a guest, which movie would you have picked for the color red?
And also, please tell me if you think Kahani's mystery worked for you when you first saw it, and if you have rewatched it, does it hold up for you? Because
Hmm.
I'm fully ready to admit that I'm in some sort of spell of this movie, and my experience is not other people's, but I'm interested to know what other people think.
Okay. All right. We will see you guys next week. Bye.